The PDGA welcomes James Koizumi, PDGA number 126027. James is running for your vote for the 2024 PDGA Board of Directors elections, which start on July 1st. James, welcome. Why don't you start by telling us just a little bit about yourself? Help us get our bearings.
Hey Grant, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate everything that you're doing, and yeah, feeling a little bit nervous today, but started disc golf roughly about 6 years ago. Probably most like everybody else. My brother-in-law introduced me to the game, and really enjoy the sport. It's brought so many benefits in different aspects of my life, but started to find ways even then to be like, wow, this is such an amazing thing. How can I give back? And I guess that's where the journey is today. Last year I was a candidate on the ballot, and was very thankful for the support from the voters, and honestly surprised because being a newer player to the game, definitely not a lot of reach or exposure, but certainly realize the opportunity of what it means to be able to sort of give back. And that's sort of where the journey's been, I guess, along the way. Played in 29 different countries, I think. Played in PDGA sanctioned events in 5 or 6 countries now. But just mostly the friends and experiences along the way.
Briefly, what's your occupation and where are you coming to us today from?
I'm coming from Calgary, Canada, and my occupation is senior lawyer or senior legal counsel, currently working for a global software company.
Well, let's dive into it. You're here today with us for a reason, and that is you want to be a member of the PDGA Board of Directors. There is clearly going to be a motivational factor for every unique candidate as to why they want to take on this responsibility in this role. For you, I want to dive into what that is. What issues or priorities do you have that you intend to champion should you be elected to the board?
That's a great question. Diving right in, I think the two things, and continuing to further sort of the aims of what the PDGA is already doing, let's start with the growth of the community. And we've seen a really incredible spark for our sport coming out of COVID, and we had a lot of people coming to the game. And I think now what we're reaching for is that sustainable continued growth. And so, for example, if there were 20, 50, 100% growth during those years, we are still seeing growth. We're seeing single-digit growth. So maybe, let's say, of those 25 people that start, perhaps 20 of them stay with the game, and then what we're trying to do is replace the 5 that maybe leave with maybe 10 more people that come back and keep that going and going and going. Also, to sort of realizing that with our sport, those people will come back to the game, and that's good. That's okay when life comes back. So, first of all, I would say that goal number 1 is continued growth of the sport in a sustainable fashion. And to do that also too, Grant, I think we've experienced something where we have a wide diversity of where our game is at. For example, in North America, Canada, the United States, or in some of the European countries, very evolved, very robust communities. And at the same point in time, for example, going down to Africa, Uganda, Zimbabwe, some of the Latin American countries, it's just starting. There's so much opportunity to even get them to that point where, for example, the sport can pop off. And so to be able to take the lessons and experiences that we've learned in some of the more the communities that have been around longer and share that experience with those communities so they can accelerate and then get to that sort of tipping point for the next thing that will pop their community off is very exciting. On the other part is growing competition, and I think we've seen an incredible progress in terms of where we are with the professional scene. Credit to the PDGA, Disc Golf Pro Tour, and all the partners and sponsors that are helping out with that. But also, too, I think what's really amazing is the sport is created through community, through competition. And so things like your local leagues, your local C tiers, your flex starts for people that may have restrictions on work or family. Those are incredible ways to create to make that new disc golf friend, or to meet somebody that you'll go play your next round with, or to travel to a different place. So creating that community. The other thing that's really key with that I've found, and it's sort of an important sort of side piece, is those smaller events, or those leagues, give the confidence, give the experience for people that are volunteering, setting up courses, running events, using the scoring method, putting in their TD reports and things like that. And that's a special way to sort of, again, enhance and sort of cultivate that sort of growth from a sustainable perspective going forward, because there's a lot of experience but tired old hands out there that have worked the shovels, that have put in the flags, painted lines, and it would be really nice that if we could breathe some new vitality in the sport, and hopefully by running, I'm a representative of that new generation.
Well, let's dive in now that we've already dove in once. Let's dig just a little bit deeper from your personal background. You've mentioned some very clear focal points: growing membership and increasing the quality of events and the services provided to those running and volunteering for those events. From your background now, what uniquely qualifies you? What experiences, education, everything of that sort make you the person to see that this gets done?
Before we jump into the CV perspective, honestly, I think the most important thing, Grant, is just sort of a pure respect, appreciation, and the joy that comes from the sport. And, I have no vested interest in terms of businesses or anything like that. I just feel very blessed. The friends that I've made, the positive impact it's been on my physical and mental health, the experiences I've had around the world, and that could be a whole nother talk in itself. So it starts from there. It really does. And then going into some of the practical things, I've been able to be fortunate to serve on boards. I've been able to work with executives and advising them in my sort of role in as a lawyer, as attorney, as counsel to these types of executive decisions. Going a little bit deeper into sort of the disc golf aspect, being the president of the local community, being on the board of directors, being involved in different sort of other sort of clubs, organizations, and things like that, and from all different aspects. So whether it's the membership growth, whether it's the leagues and those types of things, whether it's from obtaining sponsorships, or actually, in where we were, where there was a shortage of infrastructure courses. And so bringing up our course infrastructure to a level that actually is starting to try to almost catch up to the demand that we experienced with the COVID boom. So some of those types of things, I think now we're definitely north of about 300 playable holes within about a 45-minute drive of our city center. And that's not bad for a city of about 1 million or 1.5 million. That's for, and accessibility in terms of bus routes or transit and things like that, because that's one of the great things about our game. I think sort of the last piece in terms of what I think I can bring to the table is a real global perspective. And so in playing in 29 different countries and in participating in events in Mexico, Canada, US, Uganda, Kenya, Finland, PDGA sanctioned events, and then obviously playing in some of the other ones, I not only just go to the play the courses, but really take the time to meet the people. And so what's great is asking these questions, talking to community members, seeing what the issues that they're dealing with. Honestly, my photo reel is of all these random little things that you would expect in the typical tourist, but a disc golfer, like taking photos of how they put their baskets in, or the neat things they do with their signs, and really trying to take those best practices we have around the world, because we are sharing some of the same things. So much so that actually now more recently I'm sort of the organizer coordinator for Africa Disc Golf United, which is bringing together about 15 or 16 African nations and sort of using our shared experience to teach each other, to help each other, so that the leaders don't feel so isolated, that we're sharing our knowledge together, and that we're furthering the community and the sport together. As you can probably imagine, Grant, communities get fragmented. People go off in different directions, have different ideas, and this is a way for the whole continent of Africa as a new community to grow forward. And so I think when it comes to skills that I can bring to the PDGA, you've got the pure, genuine joy and appreciation for the sport. You've got some of the professional skills. You've got the local experience and leadership. But I think the last piece now is this global perspective and bringing the communities together so that we can truly make our game a world sport.
At several points already, you've brought up the people, meeting people in a variety of different communities, different ability levels, different exposure to the game, some beginners, some in countries that are just now beginning in the sport of disc golf. We want members to be part of our organization. And we want those people that are members to stay members, and those who aren't members to consider joining us. And most of the time, people aren't going to join an association and give up their hard-earned dollar or whatever their currency is in other parts of the world if they don't see a benefit. When it comes to benefits, what do you think the most important benefits are offered by the PDGA to our members? In other words, how can the PDGA maintain and even increase the value of a membership?
Grant, that's a great question. And respect to the PDGA for constantly, you see it every year annually evolving the different ways that we are increasing the value of our membership to our members and our prospective members. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach on that on a couple of points. One, I think one of the things that we can offer possibly and has worked for us locally is making disc golf more of a family game and sort of bringing in the concept perhaps of a family membership. I think probably with you in your life or anybody else, disc golf touches it because they're a part of it, whether they're supporting us to go to these events, coming with us, playing casual rounds or whatever. I think it's important to really embrace the concept of a family membership, and that could include senior discounts, certainly junior discounts, things like that, to really get away from the focus of the individual that's signing up for the particular membership. And why not get 4 new memberships for a family that has 2 kids, and get everybody involved, because that's what the game's about. I think another thing that would be really nice to be able to flex in terms of member value is honestly, when we're talking about building the sport through community and competition, is getting to meet some of the amazing people that are affiliated with the PDGA. And so just recently, just over about a month ago, I was down at the Santa Cruz Masters. And it wasn't because I thought I could play very well. I was playing outside of my division, but it was to meet some good friends, Dustin Keegan and Zoe Andike. But it was also to go play a legendary course in De La Viega, a world's course in terms of, that was hosted there, but also really to meet some of the incredible Hall of Famers or people that were around Steady Ed and hear some of the stories. And take the time and go to the meetings and sit down and sit on the log and talk to those types of people. And I think when you talk about membership value, if we get into this trade for trade, what's an extra sticker going to be if they send it with your membership package, or what that's going to be, versus also what keeps you coming back. And to see the dedicated people, the quality, integrity of the types of people that are involved with the PDGA and the members that we've had for a long time, I think it almost, I won't say it completely eliminates the concept of value, but it's less of a thought process in terms of what am I getting, and more of who we're supporting. We're supporting some incredible people that are doing some amazing things. And so I think I want to sort of shift or balance out the what am I getting for my dollar back, and also thinking about, well, I might be getting some of that, but I'm also supporting these excellent people, or even, for example, supporting new communities in other countries and get them started and what that really means. And so when you start thinking about that, then the membership value proposition, it's almost like we've been neglecting half of that proposition.
Well, when it comes to these new communities, they're obviously going to center around events of one form or another. Competitions, some of them perhaps very competitive, others more community in nature, trying to just get maybe more and more beginners out to try the sport. In either case, how do you feel like we need to go about increasing the number of these competitive events, perhaps the variety of them? How does the PDGA make that happen as the global governing body of a sport that is so community focused?
That's a great question, because it depends on your perspective. If you're in a very established community, we're looking at the pinnacle, at the top of the pyramid. The big feature events, we're thinking about things like Olympics, regional or college or types of events, and I think that's amazing because that's where it's pushing our sport forward in that respect. But I guess what's supporting that pyramid is some of the foundational ways of competing. So let's talk about some of that first. And whether that's in your local community or some of these newer communities, I think we have to think about things about getting back to more tags or more sort of sanctioned leagues or flex starts or one-day C tiers. Because it's getting those people together, it's getting sort of that community spirit of the volunteering and the efforts that go into it. It's getting people familiar with the rules. It's getting people familiar with even just having to now interact with the website or the app to look up things like that. that we can't lose sight of as we're trying to chase down things like ESPN contracts or Olympics. So on that front, I think, being mindful of wherever our communities are, doing our part. And then I guess again, on the sort of the leading edge, when we have some of these more sophisticated communities, yes, that's when we need to be out there sort of pushing our way and finding ways to get, well, aside from what I've mentioned before, also finding ways to make the game more accessible. So perhaps a dialed down version or a simpler version of the rules that we can have for more, let's say, less official versions of competitions that let people compete without the extreme formalities. You know what I mean? Like if I play in a glow league and I have glow tape on my disc, maybe that's okay. Or maybe you're going to countries where they don't have minis. People only have one disc. You know, can we find a way to let them mark their disc with another type of thing so that we can do that? And that's probably the wisdom coming from those established communities, to be able to think through some of those things, to give those new communities, instead of a barrier, more of a trampoline to help accelerate their game. So those would be some of the thoughts that come to mind, Grant, but certainly happy to go into them further.
Well, as we have just a few minutes left of our time together, I want to ask you a challenging question, one that I'm asking of every single candidate for this 2024 year. I'm going to ask you to look at the PDGA and to consider where you feel like the PDGA is falling short at this particular moment of time. Is there a situation? Is there an issue? Or perhaps something bigger, structurally, whatnot, that you feel like needs change or refreshing or new eyes. I want to give you a chance to be both critical, but to be constructive in what you say here, and to give our voters something to think about for those voters that might also have perhaps similar ideas.
Excellent question, Grant, and I think hopefully this will speak to the various community leaders out there everywhere in the world. Because with disc golf, the PDGA has done a great job, given the fact that when you're the only or sort of the main body that's representing the sport of the community, you're going to get everything. You're going to get responsibilities contracted to you and things that were never really foisted on because you're the only person standing. And I think one of the things for the PDGA, if I'm being constructive, is finding now we've got partners in this space. The evolving growth of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. We've got great media coming up. For example, we've got UPlay doing the teaching and training, and we've got Paul Macbeth Foundation working. So now taking sort of the PDGA, getting back to a little bit more of the core, and then using our resources, and that's not just money but also experience, to help leverage and accelerate those existing communities that I mentioned, or those organizations, but also creating more. And I think that's one of the things that I think from a sort of construction perspective. I think another challenge that the PDGA has, and I've touched on it throughout, is understanding what that sustainable growth for the game looks worldwide. And I think that is honestly the biggest challenge, because as the way that the sport, the history, and the PDGA is structured is it's very, for example, North American centric. And we're gaining some traction, for example, in more established communities in Europe, but this game is global. This is an accessible game, and our goal is to be bringing joy and bringing this sport and all the great experiences it have around the world. And so we really got to be mindful of how we can do that to make this game what it really, we all think it can be. And I think the last piece, really quickly here, is because our communities are so important and so fragile, and I said our selling point is our people. Our people of the game, our people of PDGA, yourself included, is that I think we have to be really good about self-policing to the extent we can, to make sure that the one bad apple in a community, like I said, we've been all around this, whether it's somebody that you play with that's terrible to play with in a card, or somebody that's running events but not doing a good job, whether it's possibly taking money or treating people badly or not being sort of a good ambassador game. We have to really understand the impact of those bad apples, and to the extent that the PDGA can, and it can't be everywhere, but within the realm of our membership, within the realm of our accredited tournament directors, being able to sort of have conflicts of interest, whistleblowing, things like this, because those people are the bottlenecks to the growth in the community when you think about it. Think about how many good people get turned away either from participating or volunteering. And so finding a way to sort of move through that, because we are the joy and the great things that the sport have are much more important than those particular individuals.
Well, as a way of closing up this conversation, James, and turning things over to the voters, as they say, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure the voters understand about you and about your candidacy while you have this platform?
Grant, I'll maybe just change that a little bit again. I think what I learned from running last time is the PDGA is blessed to have some incredible candidates. I think the ones that'll be on this year's ballots, although I've not met them, are all worthy of your votes. And so I think that know that the sport is in good hands. For myself personally, again, just know that I'm here because of a truly genuine interest. If you had time, I'd tell you how this sport has positively impacted my life and allowed me to meet people and do things that I never thought were possible. And so being on this board and doing this and sharing this game globally is just simply my way of paying back. And I'll never pay that back, but it's a start.
Beautiful words, James. He's James Koizumi, PDGA number 126027, running for your vote in the 2024 PDGA Board of Directors elections. James, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Grant.